I'm someone who likes to maintain control of my mind and my actions. And only once in my life as a young man attending a wedding did I drink a little bit of wine to the excess to see what it was like to be inebriated. It was just that one time I was with my parents. David Toolis here, Nigger Radio 927 FM. And I was, when I was not inebriated, but I was a little woozy, and that was the only time I can remember ever having consumed alcohol, really with the purpose of finding out what it was like to be slightly woozy. But I like to be in control of myself and not to be out of control, because when one is not in control of one's senses and one's words and one's actions, sin lies at the door. And since I'm reminded by worshiping God at church on the Lord's Day and every other day that I'm a sinner, prone to temptation, prone to weakness, and prone to offending His holy law, I stay away from narcotics. I stay away from alcohol. And I hope you, my listener, share the same predilection. But that doesn't mean I'm not against the drug war. And that doesn't mean that I'm not against any prohibition on various plant life, such as hemp. I was recently considering some of the evil effects of the war on drugs, which was planned during the Nixon administration by John Ehrlichman, who had a famous quote that apparently was not part of the internet searchable vocabulary of the drug war for many, many years, until it was sort of rediscovered in some notes by a writer. And I believe I first saw reference to this explanation of the drug war at Atlantic Monthly. But the quote is that we wanted to disrupt liberal, anti-war, and black activists. And so we determined that many of them were involved in the consumption of narcotics, and we are going to abuse them and harass them and make them look bad, make them look like criminals by breaking up their events, breaking up their quiet planning sessions with drug accusations. And it was against the anti-war movement and the black activists, African American activists, in the time of Richard Nixon's presidency. And so there is you might say, a nefarious cause. It's not really a public health, safety, and welfare cause behind it. And a narration of what happened on marijuana came our way not long ago from Joe Martino, writing at Collective Evolution. And it's touching on the power of cannabis, the power of the hemp plant. Hemp looks very much like marijuana, and it's in the same family of plants, but it doesn't contain the same amount of it really doesn't have any THC, which is the active ingredient, the hallucinogenic ingredient in marijuana. In the past, hemp was used for many, many things, and here now, the utility of this plant is what I want to put into your view, and suggest that in its abolition, the use of the abolition of this plant in the American economy, we are that much poorer for it. Prohibitions are, I would say, almost always wrong. Hemp was used in clothing, it was used in cars, plastics, it was used in building material, rope, paper, linens, food, and medicine. In fact, it used to be mandatory for farmers to grow hemp if they had the land. And there's a citation at LouRockwell.com as to how to find out more. It was a very popular plant throughout the 1800s and the 1900s. It's very useful, very easy to grow, and its derived products were very, very common. But during the Hoover presidency, Andrew Mellon became the Secretary of the Treasury, and also the primary investor in DuPont, the manufacturing. He appointed a future nephew-in-law, Harry J. Anslinger, to head the Federal Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. And what happened with the determination to support DuPont was a war against the hemp plant, which this supported a $1 billion industry. That now we can besmirch by talking about a product that had not been heard of at the time, marijuana. It was a Mexican slang word, and that beginning in the 1930s and 1920s, that was pushed into the American consciousness as an evil thing. It was a media blitz. It began in the late 20s by the yellow journalism part of my trade, and yellow journalism we have today in the world of clickbait and the internet. That's certainly very, very common there. The number, by the way, is 800-8949, 800-8949. And the press was used to sway public opinion. Many, many stories in the press at the time talked about the horrors and dangers of marijuana. It was making headlines everywhere. There were several films that came out, and there was one called Reefer Madness in 1936. Then one called Marijuana Assassin of Youth, 1935, and a year later, back in 36, Marijuana, the Devil's Weed. They were all propaganda films. The establishment couldn't get away with it now as it did then. But the questions, the argument made was that it's a violent narcotic, that it caused you to do acts that would shock the conscience. It would cause incurable insanity. It had soul-destroying effects. There was one man who killed an entire family with an axe because he had been taking marijuana. And then if you take marijuana, you are going to be taking soul-destroying drugs such as heroin and cocaine. Reefer Madness ends with large all-block letters on the screen. Tell your children, right? Tell your children. In April 37, the prohibitive marijuana tax law went into effect, outlawing hemp. Was brought before the House Committee on Ways and Means, and at the time, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee was Robert Doughton, who was a DuPont supporter with a vested interest, and Doughton helped pass this in the Congress. And there was an attempt to prevent the bill from being passed. Dr. James Woodward, a physician and an attorney, tried to testify on behalf of the American Medical Association. He mentioned that the reason the AMA had not denounced the marijuana tax law sooner was that the association had just discovered that marijuana was hemp, or at least a strain of it. In 1937, the hemp prohibition began. What was arguably the most useful plant known to man at the time, at least in the West, became illegal to grow and to use. Cannabis and hemp, one used to give the bad name to the other, even though neither should have realistically garnered the negative backlash. And so we have on the books industrial interest preventing the use of a wonderful, wonderful plant that was used very, very well in many fields. This is David Toulis. I do thank you for tuning into the program. If you have a call or a note to offer, a footnote maybe you want to make an important statement, do feel free to give me a call. It's 800-8949. That's 800-8949. I've been looking this morning at some of my treasure trove from the Red Bank Police Department. I'm planning to have a meeting with Robert Simpson, the chief of police, tomorrow after lunch, and I need to extend to him the courtesy of sending an agenda for the meeting. We have 30 minutes allotted. I told the lady at the front, behind the glass in the front ante room of the apartment that's all I needed. Probably it would use more, but this is David Toulis, and I can compress things into a short space. That's what we do in the radio business. We can make complicated stories, complicated problems boiled down to simple ideas. And of course, sometimes oversimplification does a disservice, but often the great service of radio is, and having the sharpest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga look at your problems, is that we can have with a little consideration, maybe some details, a good answer. One of the general orders of the Red Bank Police Department is about conduct, and I want to say something about that. Red Bank has many problems that it's trying to overcome. Mayor John Roberts, a man in the real estate business, and I'd say probably at least one member of the commission, the city commission, is working really hard to improve the city and maybe even you could say get the city out of the way of the people. And one area of reform that I'm proposing is that there be a blanket command of all officers that if someone is making a video of your public activity, you should thank them. Not arrest that person, not ban that person, as we've had. In fact, one of our station members, in fact, the managing partner of Hot News Talk Radio Incorporated, David Toole, not me, I'm the second partner, but the managing partner was told as he was making a video of a traffic encounter, not one involving him, that if he didn't stop running his phone, that phone would be seized as evidence. So that is clearly a violation of the First Amendment, and it's also called prior restraint. Red Bank Incorporated does not have the power or the authority to impose prior restraint on any operation of the free press. You report, right? You report, and the world decides. And so my colleague withdrew himself with his tail between his legs, and that is simply not to be tolerated. And now we have a new case, and you can read about this new case at yournews.com. That's yournews.com, with Alan DeBerry and DeJuan Harper. The story is in the form of Mr. DeBerry's affidavit, and I do recommend whenever you have an encounter with the police or any negative encounter with any authority figure that you make an affidavit. And that is what he did pursuant to my suggestions, and has a very, very enlightening read about what I would say are violations of not just the law by the police department and Red Bank, but violations of constitutional principle, which means, of course, the law. Your statutes are policy, you could say, and the Constitution is the law. Policy versus law, but it is called the Tennessee Code Annotated, and it is generally referred to as the law. But the problems that I want to mention to you are the use of the F-bomb, and we have on record that word was used repeatedly by these male officers in front of a gathering of students, UTC students, who that Sunday morning were in the middle of breaking up. Their party had gone on long enough. It was 1:30, and they were slowly drifting out of the gallery to their parked cars on the hill there by First Baptist Church and First Tennessee Bank. And there was a bit of a scuffle or some encounter between a private security man, and one of the partygoers, and some brave soul called 911, and there was a raid by the police department of this event. And because these young people were mostly black, they deserved the treatment of cattle. They were treated like they were cattle, like they were parties of a plantation culture, right, where the command of the officer is the command of the master. And there is no brooking resistance. There is no denial. And if you don't hop when you're told to hop by the overseer, then you are going to be whipped. Well, we don't whip people today, but we arrest them and file bogus charges against them. And that's what happened in East Ridge against 4 young people. Now, the use of profanity is something I'd say is striking. Should East Ridge, should Chattanooga, should Red Bank allow profanity by city employees on the clock? What do you think? 800-8949, 800-8949. My answer to the question, which maybe I can put words to your thoughts, my listeners' thoughts. I'm glad you're having these thoughts with me because we need to think them together. Personal conduct, the answer is no. Personal conduct, members shall conduct their private lives in such a manner as to avoid bringing discredit upon themselves. Members shall not conduct themselves in an immoral, indecent, lewd, or disorderly manner, or in a manner that might be construed by an observer as immoral, indecent, lewd, or disorderly. So if you use the F-bomb, which refers to sexual intercourse apart from marriage, right? That's what that is. It's abusive use of sex. Using a word used by soldiers, used by sailors, used by prisoners in prison. Those words, when you're on the clock at Red Bank, you're on the clock serving the people of Red Bank, then we have a serious, serious problem. The mission of the Red Bank Police Department is to, according to a flyer in which seeks to be read by would-be job applicants, it says, to effect a positive difference. Now, this, of course, is just marketing Yahoo words. Effect a positive difference in the lives of the citizens of this community and surpass their expectations through the provision of effective and efficient law enforcement services while adhering to the ethical values and standards of the law enforcement profession. A copy like that is simply laughable, okay? It's just laughable. And yet it does suggest that that cops are a positive force. Cops can't be a positive force. They are a negative force. Their job is law enforcement. It is negative. It can't be positive. But now the personal conduct rules are, again, personal conduct as apart from official conduct, right? But here we have, when you use the F-bomb, that is personal conduct while on the clock, I would say. That's not private conduct and done in private. It is personal conduct done referring to lewd acts, referring to immoral acts and indecent acts. And the F word is about disorderly act. Okay, it's all about disorder rather than law. Not the word connotes an activity that violates God's law. Okay, in a nutshell, the law being the seventh commandment: "Thou shalt not commit adultery." That is the law that's being violated by that word. And so when cops come in and shout, "Get the blank out of here," get the blank out of here, screaming this at young people who have the credit to have graduated or are nearly graduating from the University of Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is a serious problem. Conduct toward the public. All members shall be courteous and orderly in their dealings with the public. Okay, well, that did not happen that night. They shall perform their duties quietly. Well, no, why are you screaming, officer? Remaining calm, regardless of provocation to do otherwise. Members shall be attentive to and take suitable action on reports and complaints by a private person, except when circumstances make it necessary for them to report the matter or refer the complaint to a more appropriate agency. Members shall refrain. Here it is. Okay, the F word, the use of the word "damn," is not allowed to city police officers in Red Bank. Members shall refrain from harsh, violent, coarse, profane, sarcastic, or insolent language. There you have it. So the 10 officers in Red Bank should be written up. Each one should be written up for not, if he didn't use the F-bomb screaming at black people who are being treated like animals, if he didn't use the F word himself, then he should be written up for not correcting, stopping, and ordering back to his car the courageous and bold officer who is using such courageous language in public on the city clock. Members in their conversations with individuals or when speaking to a group shall avoid the use of terms which might be interpreted as derogatory or having racial or ethnic overtones. Now saying, using profane language before black people, if you're a white person, again, reduces the level of discourse to that of animality. And Red Bank City Police did that. Now, we know that it happens in Chattanooga as well. We covered in 2016 one of our major labors in the press, the abusive arrest of Hanson Melvin, whose case is going to trial, a civil case for demanding $500,000. Is going to trial in November. We covered that in detail. And David Campbell, who was fired by the police department just before the election, which Andy Burke won, he also used profanity and obscenities in an arrest in which he perjured himself. Now he wasn't charged with perjury as a criminal act, which he should have been. So we have. I just want to just peek for this second here at Neil Pinkston. the district attorney who is elected, and Neil Pinkston allows perjury to proceed from the lips of city employees, municipal corporation employees, and that is something that Neil Pinkston allows to happen. So just make a note of that. I'm not that I think that voting for one prosecutor or the other really matters, right? It doesn't really almost matter who that person is. I would say he probably should have a defense background, but anyway, it doesn't really matter who takes that position, because it is, I would say, largely pernicious in its operation, and that is because it enforces commercial government on a free people and disregards their rights. But anyway, in Red Bank, we have a problem of a kind of a retrograde perspective. We have a police department that is not properly restrained. It's not properly restrained by Chief Simpson and by the mayor. Randall Smith is the general manager, the city manager. And when we met with him to get some of these documents, well, he wasn't there to give us the documents. We were there to look over the general orders book, a very fat notebook, about a 4-inch wide binder. And we were looking to see for the rules that control the department. And we did get, I think, the ones that are relevant to our matter of inquiry here on the David Tullis Show at 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4, FM HD4. That's to say, the digital signal going out about 65 miles from Chattanooga. The number is 800-894-9800-8949, brought to you by yournews.com. Now, we have the question of reefer madness and marijuana, and I believe now the slow restoration of the hemp plant, and we do have in Tennessee a relatively new statute. I've not read up on what's happening there, but we do have the hemp industry being revived in Tennessee, and all the better for our state, all the better for the people here. Now, I'd like to think that perhaps the ban on marijuana, the part of the hemp line that has THC in it, the narcotic, that too might at some point be freed. The reason I'm for, I may be abstemious when it comes to consuming mind-altering products like alcohol, and I don't take any kind of drugs, because I want to maintain. I have enough trouble focusing as it is, as a busy intellectual, right? And as a journalist, I need to maintain my focus. But I think that we should end the drug war entirely and end all prohibition on products, because we have in their deletions, we have created the police state. And the drug war is the main element of the police state in the county, in Hamilton County, Chattanooga, and in all our municipal governments. The drug war is the casus belli, if you will, the cause of war by the state against the people. And the people are poor for it. If there are problems with someone being addicted to a medication, then we simply have to consider that medical treatments are the answer, not the criminalization. We have 4% of the world's population, the United States does, and 25% of prison inmates. That is disproportionate, suggesting that Americans indeed are a wicked people. You know, we're hated around the world. We're simply hated by many, many people, many countries. I have relatives in Switzerland. I have relatives in the Netherlands, and we are not thought well of. And the past presidents not thought well of at all, and even with the new one, maybe in some respects thought less well of than before. And the fact that we imprison 25% of the world's people suggests that Americans are indeed a malevolent people. Malevolent in requiring to be jailed and requiring to be imprisoned, but then malevolent doubly perhaps in the fact that the machinery of law puts them in there. We are, I would say, very disadvantaged people on this count. And so the war against hemp is the war against liberty, effectively. And so we should say, be gone with the drug war, and to encourage, especially Republicans. Republicans are the people who brought us the prison industrial complex. Look to them to be sorry for it and to make amends by slowly turning the lights off in that vast system. The
Chattanooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Deputies with the Bradley County Sheriff's Office told the press that 2 people were stabbed on Bell Road Southeast on Saturday night. The investigation is still underway. The hunt is on for the would-be killer. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office says Randy Harris led them on a protracted car chase through Hamilton County. Deputies say they first tried to pull him over on Lee Highway, but he led them on a car chase all the way to Highway 153, where they say a gun was thrown out the window. He was arrested and charged with many charges after he crashed, including felony evading, driving on a revoked license, and a weapons charge. 500 East